Good morning guys, and welcome back to my channel, and also welcome to Media City UK in Manchester. Today I am going to be doing the Coronation Street tour at Media City. If you're a Coronation Street fan, you are in for a treat today. So right now I'm going to go into the studios at Dock 10 to pick up whatever I need to pick up, and I shall see you when I'm in my group of people who I'm going in at 10 o'clock with. So I'll see you later. So guys, I am now in the studio at Media City. I have just picked up my ticket for my tour at Coronation Street, and this is where all the merchandise is that you can get. You can get everything and anything on this merchandise stand. Anything from magnets, jam, marmalade, tour programs, rock, chocolate, everything. Anything with the Coronation Street logo, they have got it. Anyway guys, I am gonna go, and when my tour starts I will show you Coronation Street. So I'll see you later. So guys, I am off to the set.
Warm in there. Just wait for everyone to gather. So we all Corrie fans, are we? Yeah. No, he's not. He's always walking.
I want to go that way, but she won't let me.
Which way is that? Well, I work at Man United as well.
How do you?
Yeah, I've been a fan for 45 years, but not at the moment. They're awful.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Absolutely dreadful, they are, Man United.
450 quid for a ticket last weekend.
You went? Glad I didn't go now. It's abysmal, that. Okay, so we'll just wait for everyone else to catch us up. Okay, guys, just a quick word about Media City while we're here. A lot of productions take place here, not just at ITV, but you'll notice Children in Need, Dipsy there as well. We also do things like Jeremy Kyle here, that used to be based at Granada Studios where the old Coronation Street used to be. We also have the interior set here at Media City over the bridge. So we're going to move our way across now to Coronation Street. Yeah, I'm not impressed with that last week.
One up with a Chelsea supporter as well.
Oh, it was a bad game though, to be honest.
Both teams. Both teams.
I mean, I'm just hoping as a neutral spectator, because I've not got this big hatred of Liverpool that most United fans have.
Yeah,
I don't have that. No, it's City I don't win anything. I don't care about Liverpool. Because most of my mates are Blues, so that's why I have the problem, you know.
Yeah.
But as regards that, you know, it's just hope it's a good final tonight, that's all. Exciting, it should be.
Kind of Ronnie scores 4.
Like you say, if they win it, they win it. That's why I look at it. I'm more concerned with what we do next year.
Yeah.
I mean, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, so
I can't do any worse.
I keep that under your hat for now, because I don't know. But funnily enough, I should have been working there today, but again, I'm tired of doing that.
So guys, I'm coming up to the gate. So I'm going onto the set. We're not doing the indoor bit because I'm not allowed to do it. But we are going to be doing the outdoor set instead. So there's the Corrie sign. That's my tour guide. So guys, I'm going onto the set right now.
Getting close. Not quite. Not quite.
We're nearly there.
There's the backs of Maudsley Street. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. So we're not going to give too much away. Again, this is a roadway, but we should be alright. Yeah, we started with 48, we'll end up with 30. Right, let's gather together. I think you know where that is. We're not quite going on there yet. Just keep the suspense bubbling for a wee while. Right, just wait for everyone else. Okay. Right, just wait for the last guests at the rear, then we don't leave anyone behind. Don't leave anyone behind at all. Okay. Right. Last couple at the back. Right. I think we're all there. Not left anyone, have we? Okay, we're here. Okay, guys, now just behind me we have the exterior set. Very exciting. Not quite going there at the moment. Behind you, you'll see Studio 1 and Studio 2. This is where the interiors are of Coronation Street. Now, if you went on the old tour, we used to go around the old sets. Unfortunately, we have no it's restricted, we're not allowed in there. But Coronation Street, as I mentioned before, is on 6 times a week. So you've got just under 3 hours worth of television. It takes over 180 hours worth of filming every week to actually secure Coronation Street. It's a single camera drama, so everything is filmed 3 times. Well, I won't bore you with the details of that. Again, all the interior sets are in there, from the Rovers through to Kevin Webster's, through to the cabin, you name it, they're all in there. Now, at the winter time, it gets very cold on the exterior set, so we've got a lot of people working in costume. They have sleeping bags and duvets and thick coats as well, hot water bottles if necessary. Summer, when it gets really hot, sometimes there's even an ice cream van is invited onto the set during takes as well. A lot of people work in Coronation Street. Between 300 and 400 people can be working here, ranging from costume, set designers, script writers, actors, extras. There's so many people that put this great programme together, all working tirelessly to make sure that you receive it 6 times a week. Again, a lot of costume people. We can go through, this is just an estimation, 50 boxes of tissues a month, maybe 16 lipsticks, 20 big cans of hairspray. So again, I'm not just going to bore you with lots and lots of information like that, lots of sorts of numbers, it's too much, but generally they do work very, very hard on all of these items. But what we're going to do is go to the edge of the set now. We're going to enter Coronation Street via Viaduct Street. So we're not going to give you the grand reveal just.
You taking pictures for your mum?
You can take pictures anywhere you want. I'm not going to stop you doing that.
So guys, we've got the Alahans.
Here guys.
Alahans.
Try not to go too far, I don't want to spoil the surprise.
Got the cabin over
And
there.
again, if you want to ask questions, in fact I'm going to get you doing a bit of work as well. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. So, are we all in at the back? Let's make sure we're not leaving anybody overhanging. Look at that. Right, as you can see my friends, Viaduct Street. Just take a quick look above the Viaduct Bistro. You will recognise the brickwork is ever so slightly lighter. Why do you think this is? The tram crash. Do you remember when that was? I'm going to make you do your work, you know. Hey, £35, you're going to do some work for that. Any ideas? Have a guess. It was the 50th anniversary. Remember, we started in 1960?
2010.
So do the math, 2010. So what you've got there is the tram crash of just coming up to 8 years ago. Now. It's hard to believe it's that long ago. So what we basically had was the Viaduct Bistro. Well, the Viaduct Bistro was Nick's Bistro before that, but what was the original name that Nick Tilsley called it when he bought the original area? Does anybody remember what the original name of the Viaduct Nick's Bistro was? Any ideas? Come on you Corrie fans, you're letting yourselves down here. We're going to get stuck here, aren't we? The Joinery, do you remember that? Does anybody remember that? The Joinery? Anyway, it was known as the Joinery. And in December 2010, we had the big 50th anniversary episode where we had the big tram crash. So the tram came off the tracks here. Now obviously there's no trams running across there, it's all done via CGI. Now that was actually filmed at our old set on Key Street. So to make it look realistic, when we built this set in 2013, we had to build everything brick for brick, cobble for cobble, and of course wood for wood. Everything is exactly the same, but I'll tell you more about that a little later. Now with a lot of CGI and a lot of cranes and pulleys, we created the tram crash. Now the tram came off here, then there was an explosion inside the joinery, destroying most of the cabin and most of the Alahans here, but I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. You might recall one of our very loved characters died in that disaster. Does anyone remember who that might have been? Ashley Peacock, do you remember him?
Yeah.
Nick was very viciously injured, if you remember. He had a brain injury, and that continued throughout the several years after. Lots of storylines involving that. Also, this is where Molly Dobbs died as well. You might recall Molly, Tyrone's wife at the time. She also lost her life in the shot behind me. And of course the cabin, Rita. She nearly lost her life as well. She nearly lost a battle with life, but fortunately she pulled through for another day. So it destroyed most of this side of the street and that side of the streets as well. At the time you had Brian and Julie living in the flat there. That's where they used to live. The bistro then became Nick's Bistro. Then of course it became the Viaduct Bistro when Robert Preston bought the property out with Kim Marsh's character, of course, Michelle Connor. So they own the bistro now, but it was Nick's for a while. Just a quick pop quiz for you. 9:15A, who lives up over here at the moment? All very quiet, it's a bit early for you today. You had it, yeah. Adam Barlow and Daniel Osborne. Of course, Denise Osborne, we won't go into the details of that. DNS, let's move across.
So guys, we are on the set, actually on the new Corrie set.
What do you think? Gas?
Here we go guys, this is it.
Anyway guys, thanks for coming on your tour. Right, so
The cabin.
Deb's on this side, we've got the cabin on this side.
Cabin.
Above the cabin you've got Gemma and Rita, they live above. You've also seen the shop window, some suites. Now they are real suites, but a lot of them, you might recall on the old set we used to tell you about the suites, a lot of them are out of date, especially in the window. The confectioner that deals with all the suites is a place in West Gorton, which isn't far away from here, and they're called Hancock's, and they give us all the suites. At a price, of course, you don't do it for free, so of course that's where all the suites come from as well. We're going to move on, follow me around this way. Don't hesitate
Now
in
we're
pictures,
coming
guys.
up
You want
to
anybody missing out on that? Very
the
important.
factory. Webster's garage.
So, keep moving in guys, that's the way. Where that lady's standing there, just have a look beneath your feet. Can anyone tell me what occurred there? Any ideas? I'm not going to give you too much away. Mike Baldwin, Ken Barlow. Do you remember when Mike suffered a major heart attack? Ken Barlow had him in his arms, directly where you're stood there, so it's a very interesting spot that. Now, several areas here. We're going to start with Webster's Auto Centre. Of course, currently working there, you've got Kevin and Tyrone. It used to be where Luke Britton used to work as well as a mechanic. He left the show in January at the hands of Phelan. We'll tell you more about those dastardly people that have been involved in the street coming up throughout the tour today. Currently working there at the moment, Josh, yeah, and Abby, that's Seb's mum. So they all work in the Webster's Auto Centres. We actually use this as an open set. This is also an interior set as well. Behind me, you go directly into the interior set of Underworld, the Knicker Stitches paradise, should we say, the lingerie. Now, when this original side of the street was built in 1989, where you're standing used to be where Percy Sugden used to live, in his little flat. The community centre was based exactly where we are now. Mike Baldwin used to have his factory on this side, do you remember that? Mike Baldwin's Casuals used to make jeans and old denim wear, and then he turned it into a curtain emporium before he eventually moved here and decided to move into ladies' underwear. So of course this was Mike Baldwin's original Underworld. At the moment, Underworld is owned by the, well, he's no longer with us, Aidan Connor, but there's a really big storyline coming up with Aidan and Carla and Katie and of course Alia. She's now got the deeds to Underworld, but that will become more apparent over the next few weeks. So we've had quite a lot of arguments and set twos in here. Other employees, of course, are Izzy and of course Fizz works in there, Beth and Sinead. They all work in this area also, and Little Summer's done a little spot of extracurricular stuff here as part of her school project, so we'll come to her a little later on as well. Webster's Autos wasn't always known as Webster's Autos. Can anyone tell me who used to own this garage before Kevin Webster finally bought the lease off its previous leaseholder? Any ideas?
Brian.
Well, it's after Brian Tilsley. I'll give you the initials, MVB. Does that strike any bells with you? Michael Vernon Baldwin. He was the original owner of the Auto Centre. You might recall a storyline as well last week. Remember the big inflatable here?
Yeah.
Tyrone? Well, that's where Rita lives currently. We get a lot of questions regarding this thing directly beneath the window. That's a lock-up, like a little garage. That's where she locks up all her stock and her sweets, her magazines when they're delivered. But you very, very rarely see that on screen. It's very rarely mentioned. And again, Underworld, it's been here since 1990 when this side of the street was built. You'll also see the cobbles, an interesting story about the rails running just near the side of the van. Now on the original set, we used to have these like railway lines just running parallel with the actual factory here. Now behind us, it's just a facade, it's just a frontage, shall we say. But on the original set at Key Street, that used to be where the Manchester Science and Industry Museum used to be. Now many, many moons ago, at the beginning of the 20th century, these were cotton mills. So when before the street was built here, these were all the little shunters used to deliver the goods from one end of the warehouse to the other. So to make it realistic, when we built the set here in 2013, we had to do everything brick for brick, cobble for cobble, exactly identical to the same. Now the set you see before you is 9/10 actual size of a real street. The original set was only 2/3, so it was a little slightly smaller. It's a long time since you've probably been on the original set, but it is a lot bigger this. So you can actually get two cars going alongside each other, whereas on the old street, there used to be only one car could get down the street at one time. An extra room. Now this used to be the garage, if you remember, the annex that was built on the side. You might recall a few years ago, Callum was buried underneath the annex. Yeah. You know, that storyline with Callum, David Platt, and of course Paula played Kylie. She was under there. But going back to 2003, Richard Hillman. Aptly named Norman Bates with a briefcase. Now, remember one November afternoon, he tied up Gail and young David and young Sarah Lou, tied them up in the car and drove them off to a nearby canal. Remember, he was in a scam where he was taking money off, insurance money off the likes of Emily and the likes of various other neighbours and Rita, and he was trying to scam everybody, but time caught up with poor old Richard Hillman, and when he drove the Platt family into the nearby canal, unfortunately for Richard Hillman, he lost his fight for life, but the remainder of the Platt family were all left intact. We do film in the gardens directly behind, so they are used as gardens as well. This is where Becky got married, do you remember? Yeah. And Eileen got her head stuck and so on and so forth, so this has been used on several occasions as well. But Richard Hillman, we've had quite a few really bad, baddies, shall we say, on Coronation Street. Alan Bradley, anyone remember him? 1989, the tram crash, or the tram in Blackpool. If you're watching ITV currently, I think they're coming up to that at any point soon. You've also got Phelan. Now, watch Coronation Street over the next 7 days, because this is where we see, well, I want to put too fine a point on it, but the conclusion of the Phelan storyline. So it's going to be very interesting to watch on Coronation Street this week. So again, you've got the Platts here, you've got Bethany living here, you've also got the likes of David. Shona's not living there at the moment, but I have a feeling she might end up back there. You've got Emma, current girlfriend of David, living there at the moment. Gail as well living there, and Max and Lily, they all live there at the moment. As I mentioned before, the show's been running just short of 58 years now. But some of our very famous residents have lived at number 13, currently home to Jack and of course Kevin Webster. And Tyrone's spending a bit of time there at the moment. But between 1962 and 1987, one of its very most famous residents was at 13. Anyone tell me who that was?
Stan and Hilda.
Stan and Hilda Ogden, of course. They spent many years there until 1983 when sadly Stan died. Of course, Hilda moved on 4 years after that, when she moved to Dr. Lowther's in Cheshire to become his housekeeper. And then became, of course, Sally and Kevin's first real home. You'll also recall number 13 was very special for one other reason, the mural on the wall and the 3 flying ducks, which will always be sort of connected to Coronation Street. Number 11 you will see inscribed here into the brickwork. Anyone read it?
Dennis Tanner.
Dennis Tanner. Now, as I mentioned before, as the story goes, the original street was built in 1902. So it's a little sketchy as to who lived here before the show started in 1960. But when the credits first rolled, this is where Dennis and Elsie Tanner used to live. The corner shop was the very first episode featured in the very first scene. Florrie Lindley was the very first person to be featured in Coronation Street. She'd just bought the shop at the time from Mrs. Hardman. If you want to know, if you know his stuff, you probably know that. Currently at number 11, we have Eileen. If you saw last night's episode, you might have seen her peering through the letterbox, Nicola going down the stairs. So that's where at the moment you've got Eileen and Nicola and Seb living there at the moment. Also Abby, Seb's mum, lives there, and that's where the fireworks were let off inside the top of the loft as well. If you've not seen the episode, you can perhaps catch up on that later. Number 9. Do we need to say any more about this?
Vera.
Jack and Vera Duckworth. Stone cladding was placed on here in February 1989. The storyline goes that at number 3, we'll come on to that in a minute, where Percy and Emily were living, they were having double glazing fitting. So Vera felt a little left out. She thought, well, I've got to do something to our property to make it go up in price. So we're going to have some stone cladding put on there. Unfortunately for Jack and Vera, it decreased the value, it didn't increase it. But when Vera and Jack both left the show, of course, Vera in a storyline in 2008, Jack 5 years later, their surrogate son, Tyrone, decided in homage to the wonderful Jack and Vera to keep the cladding on there forevermore. It's still classed as Tyrone's home, even though he's having a bit of a fallout with Fizz at the moment, and their children, Hope and Ruby, and of course, Sean Tully's living there at the moment. Everyone seems to forget that, but Sean's living there at the moment at number 9. As we move on, it's very slightly different to the remainder of the street.
Oh, yes, it was built.
Does anybody know why this is?
It was built in the gap between.
It was. Now, the original Coronation Street, as I say, 1960, the exterior set was actually built inside the studio. So all the cobbles and the pavement were painted on. So what the characters would have to do is pretend to step up a step. There was no step, it was just simply painted on. Then when colour television was introduced in 1969, they built the first exterior set. Now if you've been on the old Granada Studios tours back in the 90s, that was built on an area known as Grape Street on Water Street, and the original Coronation Street set, the first real outside set, was built. This changed again in 1982 when the Queen opened up this particular set. But before we built the set in 1982, in 1965, when the Hewitts lived here, number 7 was knocked down due to subsidence. So as the story goes, in 1982 when we created this new set, the new owner of number 7 was Len Fairclough, a builder, who decided to fill the gap, buy the land and build up number 7 for himself and his new wife, Rita. Rita Littlewood, who of course became Rita Fairclough. Rita and Len used to foster out children, or they used to foster children, should I say, Sharon Gaskill being one of them. She used to live here as well. But currently, we have Dev living here, and his little motley crew, and he's Asher and Addie, and also Mary. She lives here at the moment as well. Well, that's the reason for the brickwork looking ever so slightly cleaner than the rest of the street. Now, number 5. This has been home to quite a few famous characters. Namely, the Battersbys have lived here. Yeah, you might recall Curly throwing out something out the bedroom window when the Battersbys moved in 1997. Ivy and Bert Tilsley, Ivy Tilsley, Don Brennan live there. At the moment, it's just home to Chesney. Of course, he's living on his own with his son, actually, but he's living on his own at the moment. As we move on, number 3. Mentioned the new windows. The new double glazing was placed there in 1989. Of course, at the moment, owner of the house, of course, are Norris and Emily. They're both up in Peru at the moment. But at the moment, you've got Jude, Angie, and little baby George living here at number 3. Been home to Emily Bishop for quite a while as well. Now, Emily Bishop has always lived at number 3. Well, not when this programme started. When the programme starts in 1960, this is where Ken Barlow used to live originally, with Irma and Frank, his mother and father. Number 1 used to be home to Valerie and Albert Tatlock. That was his uncle and his auntie. Now, directly behind you, you'll see the new houses. The main street was demolished, where Baldwin's Casuals used to be, and it was also the home of the community centre, and where, of course, Percy Sugden used to live. Number 4 is where Tim and Sally live, and the Nazirs live directly next door. But in the original set, which was obviously Baldwin's Casuals, this is where Ernest Bishop met his maker. A bungled robbery that went wrong. So essentially where you've got the living room of Sally and Tim, that's where poor old Ernest met his maker back in 1970.
Here's the Rovers.
Then, number 1, very famous house indeed. So it's been the home of Deirdre in the past. At the moment, it's Ken Barlow, the longest resident on the street, 58 years and counting. So he's still in it, going strong as you can appreciate. We've also got Tracy living there. She lives there, Tracy Barlow, at the moment. I'll tell you where Steve and Liz live very shortly, but of course Amy lives there as well. Now, as we move on, the Ginnell. Now, on the original set, it was a lot smaller than this, because as mentioned before, it was only built for 2/3 of the actual size, whereas this is 9/10 of the original size. This is the hub of the community. So, current owner or current licensee is Toya Laverne Battersby. Now, I never knew her name was Laverne. Anybody else? No? Well, could anyone tell me the original landlord and landlady of the Rovers?
Look,
Annie and Jack Walker. When the door swung open for the first time in December 1960 and the first pints were served, that of course was where Annie and Jack actually were serving up the pints. Annie and Jack died in the late 1960s. Annie Walker continued to be licensee till 1984. This was then taken over by Bet Lynch, later Bet Gilroy and Alec Gilroy. Other famous licensees, Jack and Vera Duckworth. We'll also mention the likes of Liz and Liz McDonald's had this, Steve McDonald's had it, and Jim McDonald, who should be making a reappearance onto the street at some point in the near future. Current residents up there also, you've got Simon living there, baby Oliver, that's Leanne, lives there as well. Eva's living there at the moment, on and off, and of course Toya and Peter Barlow as well. There's also another interesting story about the Rovers. You will see directly above the signage 2 windows. Now, on the original set, there used to be 1 window, but to make it look a little more realistic, we made it a little bit bigger, and now we have 2 bedrooms inside the Rovers. Also, you might recognise on the old set, it was a lot smaller than this, so effectively using the toilets in the Rovers Return, you'd be walking into Ken Barlow's kitchen, because it was so small. So we've made it look a little bit more realistic for you, the viewers. Now, we use wide-angle camera lenses during Coronation Street, and most old properties use the same, so everything looks a lot bigger. Everything's increased by 1/3 anyway, and we also, it adds about a stone onto your weight as well. So when you see a character in real life, they look a lot smaller and a lot slimmer, because the camera does add weight to the people directly in front. Number 1 at Martha Longhurst, and Nina Sharples. Well, she used to live at number 7 on that fictitious street of Maudsley Street. Now, on the old set, you might recall it used to end here, the tour, and there used to be a big picture of a road running parallel here with Rosamond Street. Now, Rosamond Street was the original home of Jim's Cafe, where Alma and Gail used to work, and Phyllis Pierce, also the original cabin. Now, the current cabin is down at the back end. Now, the original cabin, based on Rosamond Street, actually replaced Biddulph's lending library and tea rooms. Now, when the story goes, when Rita bought the property in the mid-1970s, she changed it from the tea rooms and a lending library into, of course, the cabin. And then she was joined by one of the best comedy acts we've seen on the street, Mavis Riley. Does anybody remember her little saying? No? I don't really know. Now, who's the guy that invented that? Or not invented it, but used to impersonate Mavis? Les Dennis, who 25 years later then appeared as Michael in the street. So what comes around goes around, but yeah. So again, the cabin, as I mentioned earlier, that's been in operation down on the street now since 1990. Directly to my right hand side, you will see the Rosamond Street Medical Centre. But does anybody remember what its function was before it became a medical centre? Now, it was actually closed for many, many years. It was a dilapidated building, no one used it, but it used to have a big sign next to the lamppost, what it used to be named as. Does anybody remember what it was?
Is it a nightclub?
It was the Graffiti Club, Alec Gilroy's Graffiti Club. So the story goes that Rita Littlewood used to sing in the graffiti club. That closed down in the late 70s, early 80s, and it just became vacant. On the old tours at Granada, this is where we used to have the carousel, and that's where the old Coronation Street gift shop used to be on the old tours as well. If you avert your attention as well to the chippy, for your fries only. But I bet there's nobody here can tell me who owns that. It is now, but I used to own it before. There was a couple called the Wongs. I know they've never made an appearance in the street, but it's now part of Dev's empire. But for many, many years, it was the Wongs. Now, I used to see Sarah Lou and Bethany and Craig. They'd all buy chips from there, but you never saw the people that used to work in there. I think there was a couple of episodes where you did have a couple of workers in there. I think Beth worked in there for a few shifts, going back a few years, but you never saw the main owners of the chippy itself. And now, of course, it's part of Dev's empire. What we're going to let you do now, guys, if you just go in small groups, if you'd like to have a quick look down this side of the ginnel here, you may do that. Don't forget to take your pictures. Remember, this is Maudsley Street, so if you have a quick wander down there, it's not a very big part of the set, but you can see it's taped off. So if you have a quick wander down the ginnel, and then come straight back here, and we'll continue with the tour.
So guys, we are going round the ginnel to the back of the set. The Rovers back garden, which on the old set you could go on, but you can't here. Then the ginnel down here too. So here we have the Newton and Ridley van that delivers all the beers to the Rovers. They've actually got two vans. Got this one, and they have this one.
On the old Bernard set, we used to have, this is where you used to enter, because behind there,
And we've got
the old studio.
a shop here as
So
well.
that's where you can Jeremy Kyle and all your question time and you can
So guys, I'm gonna go and I'll move on to another part of the set, so I'll see you in a bit.
Rosamond Street building here, that's where Stan Ogden's grave used to be for guests on the Granada tour, so we used to have a little headstone there as well. Right, a quick one for you again. Number 19A. Who lives here?
Billy.
Billy and
Shona.
yeah, that's it. You've got it right. It's where Owen Armstrong used to live back in the day. Remember the builder Owen Armstrong? He used to live here. Now, this hasn't always been Preston's Petals, named after Robert Preston, of course, or Tracy Preston. She was married to Robert for a while. Of course, Tracy Barlow actually owns the boutique now, shall we say. Used to be a Bookies, Peter Barlow's Bookies. After that it was Barlow's Buy, so it was like a pound shop. And then of course she made it into a florist. She became a florist overnight, if there is such a thing. So again, you've got the bus stop. Many a conversation has took place there on the before they get in the Weatherfield Wayfarer. Just to my right hand side, Prima Donna. You're watching Coronation Street a couple of weeks ago. Very sad episode. It's where Johnny Connor found Aidan up above the Prima Donna. Aidan had just moved in above there, obviously been fighting all the suicidal thoughts he'd had for many weeks. And then a couple of weeks ago, that was the end of Aidan up there. Again, another of Dev's part of his empire, Prima Donna, manager Chesney. You've also got Kathy working in there, and of course Gemma. Then of course streetcars, and as I mentioned earlier, that's where of course Steve and Liz McDonald live at the moment. You'll be also surprised to see Nuttall's Brewery behind here as well. So this is where Nuttall's Brewery is actually based. A lot of Newton and Ridley stuff delivered from there to, of course, the Rovers. It's not been really featured in many storylines. And if you look over the fence, you can just tiptoe, you can see Sally's Orangery or Conservatory, choose whichever you want. So the gardens are actually filmed in. The central garden is where Sharif used to keep his chickens with his ears. Yasmin, of course. Zidane's now parted company with the street as well. And the garden beyond that, of course, is the Platts garden. Next to it, Roy's Rolls. Now, Roy's Rolls was originally based on Rosamond Street. When Roy Cropper bought Ed's Cafe, that's what it became. So Roy's Rolls moved here back in 1992. Now, directly above Roy's Rolls is his living apartment. You might recall that's where Hayley lost her fight with cancer as well. A very touching storyline from several years ago. The moment you've got Brian living up there. Well, it was Brian, he's moved out. It's now Carla and Roy that live above Roy's Rolls. Current community centre. But it wasn't always a community centre. The original shop was, anyone name it? Anyone name the original shop that was placed here before it became a community centre?
Butchers?
Fred Elliott's Butchers. Now, just one word about Fred Elliott. Can anyone remember his favourite tipple? Scotch and Threat. He used to order it over at the Rovers. Now, the threat was a threat of water, like a splash of water. So he used to use the word threat rather than splash. So if you're wondering what a threat was, Scotch and Threat, that's exactly what that was. And of course, this is Yasmin's Community Centre. Famously, this was also home to Michelle Keegan's character, Tina. And you might recall, a few years ago, Rob Donovan pushing her off the scaffolding. And on the old set, I don't know whether you partook in this, you used to get a lot of people lying on the road where Tina fell off the scaffolding. Many people used to lie there and recreate Tina's fall from the obviously not the fall itself, but the landing. And for those remembering that storyline, obviously she didn't die from a fall. Rob Devlin, of course, Tracy's boyfriend at the time, found a metal bar in one of the skips over near Nuttall's Brewery and finished her off on the cobbles here. So that's where poor old Tina lost her life. Again, this has been the Builders Yard, Owen Armstrong's original Builders Yard. Of course, home to Dastardly Phelan. Cooked up most of his vicious attacks and his vicious storylines were cooked up in there. Currently, it is Gary Windas's Builders Yard. A little help from Seb also. So that's where he works at the moment. As we move on, above here, this is where young Seb fell off the ladder. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Cleaning the windows up at Barlow's Legal Services. So you've got Rosie Webster working up there, you've got Adam Barlow, and of course Tom Grimshaw before he left the street back in December. The flats themselves are currently unoccupied. There's nobody living in there at the moment, which brings us on to Victoria Court. You might recall the first balcony up. There was a fire up there. Tracy Barlow set fire to, of course, Carla's flat. She decided to start a fire up there many years ago. Current occupants here include Johnny and Jenny Connor, and of course Michelle Connor and Robert Preston. They live here in Victoria Court. There's still quite a lot of empty ones that we'll probably be bringing quite a few new characters into the show over the next coming months, so they will probably be filled with various residents at Victoria Court. Behind me we have the old gymnasium, Dev's Gym. This is also currently out of action at the moment, so nobody's actually bought the property of Dev yet, so that's currently inactive at the moment. As we move down, you'll see the newer part of the street. You might have seen this last night. Shona and David walking the dog up here. Young David the dog.
So guys, we're on the new set. This is brand new Coronation Street set.
Now you'll also see, eagle-eyed of you up there, Weatherfield Police Station. Now what we can do, we can also remove this part of the set out of the way and turn it into the police station as well. So that can be used as part of the police station. So all the sort of dastardly goings on that have been occurring over the last few months, that's where the Weatherfield Police Station is at the moment. This is actually an estate agent's, not currently occupied by anybody that we know of. Again, that might be a storyline up and coming. You've got your Costa Coffee and your Weatherfield Co-op. Again, product placement, my friends. This must have cost ITV an absolute enormous amount of cash. Again, no storylines connecting these areas at the moment.
Speak down.
You might recall the Ginnell as well. Where's he, Dan? Went to rescue Alia and of course Rana, just down the back there. So you've got your Weatherfield Hall, your Costa Coffee and your Co-op. To my left hand side, unfortunately there's no entrance into the garden, but this garden is in memory of the 22 victims of the Manchester Arena terror attack just over a year ago. And you've got the bench there. You might not be able to read the inscription on the bench, but it is actually in memory of Martin Hett, a very big Coronation Street fan who died in the atrocities just over a year ago. The little bench there is where Johnny and Eileen had a chat only last week, and it's where you saw David open up to Shona about his attack with Josh,
Here's
also in this little area.
Metro
as well.
stop,
So
Weatherfield
we'll put
North.
more into the programme over the next few months. And I dare say the two
You've got
areas
Costa
behind me
Coffee
will also spoon some great
and the Co-op.
storylines in the not so far distant future. So I imagine a lot will happen there. I'll give you an extra few minutes here, guys, to take your pictures. It is your last opportunity for pictures before we make that heady walk back to Media City. So if you have any questions, anything that's niggling you, anything you need to know, please let us know. Just a word about the cobbles here. These latter bits of cobbles were actually from the original set on Keith Street. So these cobbles were used on the original Coronation Street set. So we tried to keep a little bit of the old set nice and fresh in the new set, as it were.
So guys, that is the tour. Yeah, it's done, all done. On the way back to Media City now. And yeah, that is it. So if you enjoyed today's video, please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Please leave a comment down below because I'd love to hear your views on what you thought of today's video. And thank you very much for watching.